Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the October monthly webinar for all of you LEA special education points of contact that are out there. I am Annette Thacker-Bartlett, and I am with the OSSI Division of Elementary, Secondary, and Specialized Education. I will be co-presenting today with my colleague, Ms. Kathy Ash, who is with the OSSI Division of Data Assessment and Research. Today we are going to dive in a little deeper to child count. It is the season for child count, and today we want to talk about data systems and reports. That's kind of our overall theme, but especially as they pertain to child count. And then we will talk a little bit about other data systems and reports that are directly relevant to you as the LEA special education point of contact. And then we also have a few more training tips, announcements, and reminders before we wrap up the webinar. Before we get started, I want to do a quick poll question. The webinar today hopefully will be a little more interactive. I want to know right now who you are. So I'm asking you, what is your role with regards to the LEA special education point of contact? Are you the main point of contact and you're experienced in that role for at least 1 year? Are you a newer main point of contact? Perhaps you're not the main point of contact, but you are pretty much the POC over a campus within your larger LEA. And perhaps today you're not the main point of contact, but you assist the main point of contact with several of the duties of a typical POC. 10 more seconds to vote. All right, thanks for voting. And here are our results. Looks like half of you are experienced POCs, a quarter of you are newer POCs, and then the rest of you assist the POC. So thank you for that. First, we're going to talk about child count, data systems, and reports. This includes a reminder of the critical deadlines coming up for child count. We're going to talk about child count reports found within SLED that you need to be checking frequently. Also, the data verification expectations, and also how you can use CLIC to look at a very critical child count report. And then we'll dive a little deeper into that report. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Kathy Ash. We're having a technical difficulty. Just give us 1 second to fix the audio.
Great morning again, everyone. Technical difficulties can be a real challenge sometimes, but we believe we're here. So I want to talk to you today about the state data systems relating to child count. There are 5 of them, or 6, I'm sorry. As a reminder, it's SLED, which is a state longitudinal education data system, and that system is where the official enrollment audit and child count data is displayed. Of course, we have SEDS, the Enrollment Audit Quick Base application. That's the system that LEAs use to submit residency, resolution, appeals, and ELL and LEP documentation. And of course, the OSSI support tool, which all of you are familiar with. That is the system that you use to submit a request for support from OSSI and also to resolve anomalies. Our newer system, which is eSchool Plus, that's the system that LEAs use to update LEA points of contact and calendars. And then we have the ClickSense, which is the data visualization tool that includes a unified data errors application. The child count timelines, fortunately, we are done with phase 1. Thank you all for your timely support. And the next phase, which we're in now, is where the LEAs have access to their data, and you are responsible for reviewing and resolving all of the data by November the 18th. Phase 3 is also done. That was completed on October 7th. The last phase remaining is phase 4, and that's where the LEAs are responsible for e-signing the certification form, and that has to be e-signed by the head of school. Access to SLED. If you don't have access already, training is required to gain access. What you need to do is sign up. The next training is October 25th from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. And you can email sled.info@dc.gov to RSVP or to request an alternate training date. For those who already have access to navigate to SLED, you type in https://sled.ic.dc.gov and you log in with your SLED credentials. Then you will click on the Programs tab in the menu bar, and the Enrollment Audit Report options are shown in the drop-down menu. The Enrollment Audit Reports in SLED includes the Summary Report, which is the report that shows the LEA and school total enrollment counts for UPSFF and child count. And then there's the student level report, which shows the student level data that corresponds to the summary report. And what you will do is select the population of interest from the following drop-down menus. There's the Enrollment Audit UPSFF population, and that view displays only the students enrolled and attending DCPS and public charter schools. And then you have the child count population. This view only displays those special education students who are part of the annual child count report. And then finally, we have the non-public population. This view displays only those special education students who are enrolled in DC LEAs but attending non-public programs. The child count data view in SLED. What you will do is click on child count to view students at your LEA who receive special education services. And here's a visual of where that tab is. The child count data verification, the data elements are listed for you. Again, we're just providing this as a reminder because we did go over these in last month's webinar. You have the USI, your first and last name, the date of birth, and the student's age as of October the 5th. The gender, grade, race, LEP, that's the student's limited English proficiency status, and the LEA, which is the students attending LEA as of 10/5/2016. Some timeline of activities. You want to continue to review the student demographic data. If any of the student demographic data is inaccurate, the data should be corrected in the LEA's Student Information System, and we know it as the SIS. Data is collected nightly from the LEA SIS and reflected the next day in OSSI's systems. One tip for you is to work closely with your LEA data manager or registrar to ensure that all data is accurate and up to date in all the systems. Again, here's some additional child count data verification data elements that we look at. It's a primary disability, the most recent IEP date, the IEP event ID, the most recent eligibility date, the total hours outside and in general education setting, the total hours, which are the hours for all specialized instruction and related services prescribed on the IEP regardless of the setting, the percentage outside of general education, the environment, and that's the education environment from the least restrictive environment page within the IEP process, dedicated aid, and dedicated aid hours. Now I'm going to provide you with an overview of ClickSense. ClickSense is a data visualization tool available to LEAs to review reports on various topics, including data errors. To access Click, users must have SLED credentials and a Click token. The LEA head of school or the LEA data manager must request that you receive a token, and those requests can be sent to osse.dar.training, all one word, at dc.gov. And to log into Click, you want to type in https://analysis.osse.dc.gov. The OSSE Unified Data Errors and Anomalies. In an effort to report consistent and timely data to stakeholders, we have consolidated all demographic, enrollment, attendance, and special education data errors and anomalies into a comprehensive report, which is the Unified Data Errors Report. LEAs can access this report in ClickSense, and we know that many of you have been in and looking at that report and resolving issues. Each error and anomaly has a suggested resolution path, and it indicates whether it will impact the enrollment audit or the child count data collection processes. Here's a picture of the ClickSense home screen. When you log on to the home and land on the home screen, you will select LEA, and that's where you will see the Unified Data Errors report. And you click on the report and it will show you the errors and anomalies. There are 4 types of errors and anomalies that will be reported in Click. That's the enrollment, special education, attendance, and transportation. Here again is a screenshot of what that page looks like, and you would, as the LEA SEPOC, look at the special education data errors. Also, below is a sample of what the special education data errors report looks like. These are the data errors for the particular LEA and the total unique students. And just to the right of that, the error information, here's where you will find the suggested resolution path. Few definitions for you. An error is data entry input by the LEA is deemed incorrect or invalid. And data entry that is deemed incorrect or invalid based on one of the following premises includes the data entry does not align with data standard defined by OSSI in the data collection template, and data entry does not align with the historical authoritative data OSSI has established in the category within LEAP. And of course, the authoritative data system is SLED. Data entry is not a permitted value. For anomalies, that's data entry that deviates from what is standard, normal, or expected. Data entry is possibly incorrect and requires a flag to alert the LEA to assure the entry is correct. Now, the child count exclusion is, this is an indication that the error will lead to the student's record being included entirely from the child count roster. The enrollment exclusion is, this is an indication that the error will lead to the student's record being excluded entirely from the enrollment audit roster. A few implications under the errors would be the data, it must be remedied prior to the student's entry on the child count roster. Failure to remedy errors has potential funding implications if they're not addressed, and failure to remedy errors may impact accurate and timely downstream data submissions, including attendance data. Implications for anomalies are they may not present a technical issue and does not have funding implications. Some required actions for both errors and anomalies. For errors, the action steps in the suggested resolution path must be completed for the error to be removed from the report. Full resolution of the error will remedy potential funding issues if the resolution is completed in a timely manner. And finally, the suggested resolution path may not be the only method that will resolve the error. For anomalies, they can be removed by completing the suggested resolution path. And because anomalies may represent accurate information, full resolution of anomalies is not required. However, completion of the resolution path is required to remove anomalies from the error report. With respect to IEP amendments for child count purposes, October 6th through November 18th, we're getting close to that November 18th date. Please make sure you view error and anomalies, the anomalies list, and click report on a daily basis. Amend IEPs to rectify errors and anomalies. If question arises for a particular error or anomaly listed in the report, you want to submit a question in the OSSI support tool. I have an update that I believe you will appreciate. For your convenience, OSSI has streamlined its child count process. LEAs do not need to provide OSSI with the IEP event ID and event date for any corrections actually related to child count done previously, as you've done previously through the OSSI support tool ticket. Please move forward with resolving all issues such as amending the IEP without creating a ticket. Any tickets that have been submitted prior to today, OSSI staff will go in and put those tickets as resolved because we've informed you that you no longer need to provide OSSI with the event ID and event date. And what we will do is pull the information on November 18th. As we discussed at last month's webinar, the top 3 most common IEP amendments needed for child count are the educational environment. Please remember that SEDS does not automatically change the least restrictive environment selection radio button when services are updated on the IEP or finalizing the IEP. setting frequency and length of services, and also the dedicated aid. Those are the top 3 most common IEP amendments needed. We have one final due date for child count, and that's the child count data certification form, which must be signed and submitted by December 2nd at 5 p.m. The forms must be e-signed by the head of school of the LEA, or I'm sorry, the head of the LEA, not the head of the school. And the certification form will be e-signed in SLED in the enrollment audit section. DCPS will certify the data for students with IEPs attending dependent charter schools, since the LEAs elected DCPS as their LEA for special education. Failure to submit timely documentation could definitely have an impact on local determinations as well as funding. Please follow the directions for submitting the child count certification as outlined in the OSSI Enrollment Audit and Child Count Handbook. Now I'm going to talk to you about child count and the OSSI support tool in terms of requesting the support, completing the form, some examples of category issue types, standard transfer of records process, and new transfer of records process. OSSI is the QuickBase app, the OSSI support tool is the QuickBase app. I know you guys are so familiar with the OSSI support tool, so work with us for just providing this to you as a reminder of what OSSI is used for. It's available to the SEDS LEA Special Education Point of Contact to enter issues about anything related specifically to SEDS. And to send OSSI a question or issue, once you've logged into the support tool, you will click on the Add Request for Support button. Then you will select the category that best describes your issue from the drop-down menu. Once you select the category, a second drop-down may appear asking for additional information. If your request involves a specific student, please complete the fields under student information. Also, we ask that you enter a detailed description of the issue in the issue description box. If necessary, a user may take a screenshot of the page in SEDS where you are experiencing an issue to include in the support request. In fact, we encourage you to take a screenshot of the page. Once you've entered all of the information, you want to click the Save button. This next slide will be very helpful to you and hopefully save you some time. It's the Global Issues ticket. If you have an issue that affects multiple students, please complete the Global Issues template found under the Quick Reference Guide tab in the OSSI support tool. You do not have to submit a new ticket for every student. Again, you do not have to submit a new ticket for every student. Please use the Global Issues ticket to submit a ticket that affects multiple students. Now, the submission process, once you have successfully submitted a request for assistance, you should receive an email acknowledging receipt of the new submission. When the status changes from new submission to investigating or action information required or resolved, the user will receive an email. An OSSI representative will review the request, then either ask you for additional information or submit a resolution. Just as a reminder, there are over 20 issue types available for a user to choose from to request support for SEDS. Therefore, The only time others should be selected is when none of the options in the drop-down menu apply to the specific issue. Once you select the appropriate issue type, a drop-down menu under status subcategory will appear. Examples that show when the LEA should select an issue type other than other. If you have an issue with Annette disappeared from our SIDS. I saw her name in the system yesterday. Can you please assist with getting her back in SIDS at our LEA? That category should not be other, but rather enrollment, student not appearing in SIDS, currently attending LEA. Another example is Seth is no longer attending the state school. He has moved to West Virginia. The category that you select would be enrollment, student erroneously appearing in SIDS, not attending the LEA. System issue, click, is the category that you would select for this example that I'm going to give you. One of my students' attendance data is feeding incorrectly into click. How should we go about getting the information correctly? That's very clear about what the issue is. It sounds like it's a click issue. So click being one of our systems, you would select system issue / click, not other. So please, it makes it much easier for you as well as OSSI staff reviewing and responding to those tickets. And that's going to talk to you about the additional data systems and reports. So I'm going to turn it over to her. Please continue to put your questions in the chat box, and we are on hand to answer them. Annette?
Thank you, Kathy. I've seen a lot of really great questions in the chat question box about child count. So our child count team is working to answer those as we go along. Now, moving away from child count, I want to talk to you about some additional data systems and reports that are directly relevant to you as the LEA special education point of contact. And these are ones that we do expect you to use on a pretty regular basis because they're tools that OSSI has created for you to be able to oversee what's happening with service provision, what's happening with IEP timelines, etc., over all your SEDS users and all your special education staff at all your campuses. So hopefully you tuned in to a webinar we held last month that featured our new and improved Related Services Management Report, or RSMR, that is now available for POCs in the ClickSense data application. Now, Kathy talked previously about a different app available in Click, the Unified Data Errors Report. The RSMR is a separate app in Click that you should have access to if you are the LEA SC POC. Now, I'm just going to give a 3-minute overview of why this tool is so awesome, but I do encourage you to go watch the full webinar that shows everything you wanted to know about the RSMR. As a reminder, in order to have access to the RSMR app in Click, you first have to have access to Click in general, and you log in to Click using the same login you use for SLED. Not just that, you have to receive a magical token from OSSI because access to Click is limited. Your LEA has to let OSSI know who at your LEA should have access to Click. So that should, we have decided at OSSI that definitely every LEA, SE, POC, who's the main POC for their LEA, all of those should have access to Click. So if your name is listed in our official school contact database, then we will automatically give you access to the RSMR within Click. So if you do not have access when you log into Click, you need to double check with your LEA data manager, because they are the one responsible for keeping the contact list updated in eSchool Plus. The contact list is what OSSI relies on to know who's who at the LEA. Right, so when I log into Click, how do I know if I have an RSMR? Well, it will look like this. You can see my dashboard, my home screen for Click, that I have RSMR as one of my apps. And when I click on that app, it will expand and show me there's 6 different pages or sheets, 6 different sheets within the RSMR app. And these 6 sheets are 6 different ways of looking at related service provision at your LEA. It takes the data and it slices it up all different ways so you can play with it and get all sorts of information before you even have to generate a report. It's really a data visualization tool, not necessarily a report. You can filter for certain things and then generate a report based on what you're looking at. But the tool itself, you can just play around with it. It's very interactive. So on the home page, and you know what, let me just go show you this live on the, oh, let's see, I don't want that. I want Click. Where's my Click? There it is. So when I log into Click, I use my same credentials that I use to log into SLED, and it makes me agree to a privacy statement. And on my Click, I have 2 apps in my stream for SE. I have a training stream so that I can show you things using fake students and not reveal student private information. So here I have 4 different apps. I'm going to click on the Related Services Management Report app. And here are the 6 different sheets. I'm going to start with the introduction sheet. Here's where I filter. So let's say I want to look at a certain provider. So I click on that provider. And up here you notice it grays out all the services that the provider does not do. So it automatically filters. Then I could go over here and I could filter even more by the service type. For example, I could click on student absent if I only want to see service logs for when the student was absent. Or maybe I want to see absent, unavailable, and provider unavailable. But I'm not allowed to select unprovider unavailable because there's not any in that category for this particular provider. Or I could do multiple providers at the same time. Or I could do all of them. Or I could do a school type. Or I could do a school campus. This is nice because I can choose a campus and I can look at service provision over the entire campus. So you just play with it. And then on the next sheet, so up here I'm on the introduction sheet, now I'm going to go to the next sheet. It will show me different ways of looking at. This is comparing prescribed versus delivered. And the next sheet shows prescribed and delivered per provider. Excuse me, the first one is prescribed and delivered over a certain time period, and you can select any date range you want. You don't have to do it by the week or month. You can do it for 1 day, 10 days, 50 days, last month, whatever you want. It's very flexible, the date range. And then the third page is per provider, so you can see different providers compared to one another. Now, there's not a ton of data in this because it's a training site. In yours, it will look much more robust, lots more data. Then I can go into details. I can literally drill down into the details of each, what's on each student's IEP. This pulls all the information straight from the IEP, the demographics, the details about when the IEP was created, and what's exactly prescribed on the IEP. So you don't have to go digging around for it. It's all right there. Then the next screen, so now I'm on the delivered service detail. This pulls exactly from the service log in SEDS that in the wizard that the service provider filled out. It will show you the exact log. Let me go back to the beginning and let me just filter. I'm going to unfilter so that it shows a lot more than what I want to show you some more data. So there you go. You see a comparison of prescribed versus delivered. And here's different providers compared to one another. Here's details for all the students pulled directly from their IEP. Here are details on every single service log that was put into SEDS for those students. You can expand if you want to get a bigger picture. You can always expand any box. And then the very last sheet, called the summary sheet, the summary sheet looks pretty much like what you would usually see if you generate the RSMR within SEDS, and you would get that big spreadsheet. This is basically the same thing as that. It just summarizes everything in one spreadsheet. So that is a little sneak peek, hopefully to get you excited about the RSMR application. And this is only available in Click to LEA special ed points of contact. So because you're the ones that need to oversee service provision at all your campuses, by all your providers, this tool is meant to help you. Now, if you'd like to share information from this tool with other people, you can easily export to a PDF and share it with others. These are slides showing you what I pointed out to you live online, so I won't take too much time, but you can reference these slides to go back and remember what we talked about, how you can filter for certain providers, you can filter for a service, for a student, for a campus, you can filter up to 20 different ways. This is showing you an example of how you can use the RSMR tool and Click to look at one specific provider. And I will note that sometimes, like this example, a provider's productivity can exceed 100% because sometimes, for example, if a student missed a service when they're absent, the provider will create the first log and they will log the 30 minutes, but they will log it as student absent as the type of service. Then if they make up the service, they will do a second log where they log 30 minutes as delivered. So the provider is actually getting credit for being available that first time and for making up the service. So that's an example of how a productivity percentage can go over 100. Well, the good news is that's not the only thing you'll see. That's just one of the sheets. You can go look at a separate chart that will break it down to show you what type, like how many minutes were actually delivered and how many minutes were just them getting credit because they were available but the student was absent. So other sheets allow you to drill down. For example, here's the 5th sheet. Same provider, but now I'm looking at the details of what all the service logs. And so then I can see, was it a makeup service? Yes. What date was it making up? Oh, okay, I see the first log. Now I see the makeup log. So it all comes together. And also you can drill down to a specific student. And when you click on the student, it will automatically filter out all the service providers that do not serve that student. And then you can go and look at prescribed versus provided in this cool line graph. Now, some IEPs like to prescribe minutes per month. Some like to do hours per month, hours per week, minutes per week. There's lots of different ways to prescribe services on the IEP. So the RSMR breaks it all down to minutes per day, that it's averaged out. So for example, if you're prescribed 60 minutes per month, and if there's 20 school days in that month, that averages to 3 minutes per day. That's why the pink line on the graph looks really weird, 3 minutes each day. Obviously, you're not going to give a service for 3 minutes each day. You're going to do it all at once in one session. But the way it's calculated averages it out over the per day, because it draws upon each school campus calendar that's put into eSchool Plus by the data manager. The one in SEDS only calculates based on the LEA calendar, but this one's nice because it drills down to the actual campus calendar, and as you keep that calendar updated, this will always update itself as well. And here's some other cool graphs that can show you about the student, what's happening with their services, who provided services, what type of service, just some really cool stuff. And you can do a school level report to look at what's going on an entire campus. So that's RSMR. So we launched this about a month ago, and so I am going to do a quick poll question. I would like to know, have you been using this new RSMR tool? So please take a second and vote. So have you never seen this before because you do not have access to Click? Or maybe you have access to Click, but you don't have the RSMR showing up on your dashboard because you're not officially named as the LEA SCPOC on the contact list. Or maybe you do have access, but you have yet to explore. Maybe you've explored it a little bit. Maybe you've used it a handful of times. What we'd really like to see is all of the POCs using this tool on a very regular basis. Hopefully what I've showed you today makes it clear that it's very easy to use. You literally can go in there and just start clicking on different things and playing around with it, and it's not going to screw up anything in SEDS. It's not going to generate a report. It's just you playing with the data to visualize what's going on for a student, a campus, a provider, or any combination thereof. You can even filter for missed services if you just want to look at a log of missed services. Thank you so much for voting. As you can see, most of you either don't have access or have access and have not started using this tool. Now we realize we just barely launched it, but as the school year goes on, we are going to track how you're using it because we do expect you to oversee service provision in your role, and so we hoped that this tool would make it very easy to do so. So if you did not watch the webinar that goes in depth on this, I definitely, back on this slide here, and the slide should have been emailed to you. Here we are. On this slide, there's the link to the webinar recording that talks about this tool. You can access that in the PDF copy of the slides that was sent to you earlier during the webinar to your email. So that's RSMR. Okay, and now I want to point out a few other reports that I know we've talked about for the last couple years. In SLED, there's the enterprise reports. There's a few reports in here that we do expect you to look at frequently as the POC. In particular, the LEA Planning and Performance Report. Now, there's all kinds of reports. We created these just for you. So you can look at, we've got child count stuff, we've got you can find park scores, you can do all kinds of stuff in SLED. In particular, though, for you as a POC, there's certain reports that has pulled data from SEDS and put it into reports that are easy to use, easy to read. And if you don't think they're easy to use or easy to read, we definitely want your feedback because we're always trying to update these reports to make them useful for you. That's the whole point, is to make it easier for you to do your job. So please give us feedback. Now, for example, when you're in SLED, if you want to go find these reports, you would click on Reports, and under OSCE Reports, you'd click on Enterprise Reporting System, and that will take you to the list of all the reports that pull information from SEDS. If you want a roster of all the students in special education and what their disabilities and hours are, you can find it here. If you want a snapshot of how many IEPs you did on time and how many were late, you can get it here. It's a performance and planning report. Duplicative enrollment report, it's right here. It's a lot of different reports. And again, you in your role, we do want you to be looking very regularly at the performance and planning report and the events not transferred report if there's a lot of transfers going on with student records that you might need to be trying to figure out. And again, another poll question. Now I want to know, how often do you use SEDS reports in SLED? So this could include the LEA Planning and Performance Report, can include the Special Education Roster Report, the Enrollment Report, We are definitely interested to know how many of you in your role as a POC are going to these reports on a regular basis to get information to help you do your job as a POC and overseeing provision of services, overseeing timeliness of IEPs for all of your students with disabilities within your LEA. And again, these reports can easily be exported into a PDF or an Excel so you can share it with somebody else. If you're not the main POC, you might not have access to SLED, but you can talk to your main POC and say, hey, can you give me a copy of that report in SLED? Thanks so much. And then they can send you a copy and you can have access to the same data so you can support the main POC in doing their job. Thank you so much for voting. Now I'm going to share these results. As you can see, it's a very mixed bag. I'm very pleased to see that a good chunk of you have used some of these reports or use them regular. For those of you that do not, we definitely encourage you to start doing that. If you don't have access to SLED, but you should, please sign up for a SLED training. Please email that SLED email that we showed you earlier in the slides. Get access and start using these reports. Great. And here is a snapshot of one of those reports, the LEA Performance and Planning Report, just to give you an idea of what it looks like. And this is live. It changes every day because every night SEDS and SLED get together. They meet up at night. They have a little rendezvous. They talk to each other. They share data with each other. So if something happened in SEDS during the day, SLED is going to hear about it during their nightly rendezvous, and then the next day when you look in SLED, things will look different. So this is a live, ever-changing, dynamic report. Okay, we're nearing the end. A few more minutes. I do want to remind you about something important about non-public access to SEDS. All non-public staff who have a SEDS account, it needs to be an aggregate account. A non-public SEDS point of contact or any other staff member in a non-public should never ask you to create them a SEDS account. Now, in the past, you might have done that, and that's fine. You're not in trouble, because this school year is the year that we're really trying to streamline and crack down on this. The reason why, there's a couple of reasons, is, for example, the non-public could at any point receive another student from a different LEA, and now they're going to need two SEDS logins, two SEDS sites, two separate LEAs. We don't want them to have a bunch of separate logins. We want them to have one SEDS aggregate account, and within that, they can access multiple LEA SEDS sites. Also, you should not have to be responsible for managing SEDS accounts for all these non-public staff members. They need to come to OSSI. You, in your role, are only responsible for managing their access to specific students that belong to you. So if a non-public staff person comes to you and says, hey, I need a SEDS account for your LEA, you say, that's great, but you need to go to OSSI. You need to put it in the OSSI support tool. OSSI will create them a SEDS aggregate account, and they need to ask in their request, say, hey, I need access to this particular LEA, and OSSI will set that up. Then they will come back to you once they get the account, and then they will say, hey, LEA POC, please give me access to these particular students. And that's where you come in. We cannot give access to specific students here at the state level. You, as the LEA, you have to give approval to see specific students. We just create an account generally. So they need to go to OSSI to get the account, then they come to you to get access to students. So we've gotten a lot of tickets recently, and we've gotten a lot of people that have been frustrated because the non-public will go to the LEA and say, hey, make me a SEDS account, but you need to send them back to OSSI. Say, hey, to get an account set up, go to the OSSI support tool, and if it's a random non-public staff member, they need to go to their designated non-public SEDS point of contact, who's kind of a parallel position to you as the main point of contact. And that point of contact at the non-public has access to the OSSI support tool. So they always have a way to go directly to OSSI for these type of things. They should not be coming to you until they're ready to get access for the students. And then we always get all these tickets from the non-publics. They send OSSI a ticket. They're like, hey, I can't see Susie bills in my SEDS account. Please fix it. And OSSI has to respond back and say, sorry, we don't give access to specific students. You need to go ask Susie's LEA to give you access to the student. So they kind of get this runaround. And so we just want everyone to be clear about who gives access to what and to who. Okay, one reminder about the alternate assessment eligibility timeline. This is just a screenshot from the website that lists the full timeline of what's happening right now with the alternate assessment eligibility. So this year we're doing something a little new to try to make it easier for you. If there's students that were confirmed to take the alternate assessment in past years, OSSI will send you that roster and say, hey, has anything changed? But if you have students that this is the first year that you're saying they're eligible to take the alternate assessment, for example, if they're a third grader, or another student that took the regular assessment in the past and now you're switching it to say, hey, they should be taking the alternate, then you do need to make sure you have all that documentation ready in SEDS, complete the form, upload all of it, and do that by November 14th, because starting November 15th, OSSI is going to go review all of that list of students and review all the evidence and documentation and say either, okay, we agree with you, they are eligible, or no, we disagree with you, we do not think they're eligible, and we will send that determination back to you on December 2nd. And then you have a month to respond to OSSI and send additional evidence, give us more information to convince us that, yes, the student really does qualify to take the alternate assessment. So we kind of have this back and forth. It stretches on for several months. So right now is the critical part for you to make sure if you have students that you think qualify for the alternate assessment, just make sure all their documentation is updated within SEDS and that a finalized IEP denotes that they're taking that. Because the finalized IEP is what OSSI is going to take to get that list on November 14th to start checking it out and communicating with you. Okay, and if you are interested, we have a SEDS Train the Trainer coming up. We have one more session for this fall. It just gives you some tips and tricks and tools to be able to more effectively train your staff on SEDS. And remember, that is one of your main responsibilities, is to make sure all your staff that have SEDS accounts know how to use SEDS, use it appropriately. So we give you some tools. And we also have a special related service provider, SEDS Train the Trainer. If you have a lot of related service providers, especially new ones or clueless ones, that could use more training, and you yourself don't want to take the time to train related service providers on SEDS, you can select an experienced service provider. Experienced in SEDS is what I mean by experienced. Send them to this training, and they become a trainer for other service providers at your LEA. Then that will help take something off your plate. Now, recently we've been having people that are new to SEDS that are not going to be SEDS trainers. They just are kind of new and they want to learn more about SEDS. We've had some POCs sending people to these trainings just to get basic SEDS training. These are not that type of training. This is not appropriate. OSSI does not provide basic SEDS training in a live, come in person training format. That's your job. The POCs you should be providing that hands-on, in-person, or however you decide training for your new SEDS users or your inexperienced SEDS users. People that come to these trainings that OSSI hosts, it's a train the trainer. So please make sure your staff are not confused and think that we've had them show up thinking it's a basic SEDS training, and they've been frustrated to learn that we are not talking about the basics. We're going much beyond that. And you can register for all of these trainings on the link below. Okay, thank you for sticking with us for today's survey. I have a couple quick poll questions because we would love to know if you found today useful. So first question I'd like to ask is whether or not you think this webinar addressed all of your questions regarding the topics discussed. A few more seconds to vote. Okay, thank you so much. Now I'd like to know if you think the OSSI support tool is a sufficient method of getting support from OSSI. A few more seconds. Great, thank you. And now I want to know if you think the presenters discussed information relevant to your needs as the POC. Let me just launch that. Okay. And for all of these questions, you are also welcome to submit comments to us using the question chat box. You can also submit comments, suggestions, feedback, in addition to voting on these polls. Thank you for that. And now I would like to know, as a result of this training, do you feel more knowledgeable about what you're supposed to do as the POC? Thank you so much for voting. And now this last one is an open response. If there's anything else you'd like us to focus on, please go ahead and give us our feedback in the question chat box. And if you think of something later, you can always email the ossi.dartraining@dc.gov for more feedback or suggestions. So this concludes our webinar. We are now going to stay on the line to answer additional questions coming in through the question chat box, but this concludes the formal part of the webinar. And I want to remind you the next webinar is coming up on the 3rd Wednesday of November, and the December webinar, last time we voted and we all decided to bump it up to the 2nd Wednesday in December. So please note that on your calendar.